Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. This is the Classified Materials series where we document and cover every entry in Halsey's journal from start to finish, analysing each entry contextually, the lore surrounding that particular entry, and any tidbits of information we find along the way. This is episode 18, dated June 5th, 2522. Doctor, if you would.
June 5th, 2522. Odd even to me at this stage. But my official role with Oni has, until today, been only advisory. A series of undocumented but well-paid contracts that have benefited me little, since I lack the time or interest to spend their money. They finally offered me the chief scientist position, and I accepted. I'm not entirely certain why they chose to now, as I've never engaged them on this topic before. It might have something to do with the general curiosity of the scientific community, and my colleagues, since I haven't given any of them an ounce of my spare time for nearly a decade. They may have come to suspect that my unofficial temporary advisory role here is, in reality, none of the above.
This is a fantastic entry that once again speaks to the immense intellect and reputation of Dr. Catherine Halsey. And it's because of this immense intellect that Dr. Halsey actually represents a considerable concern for the Office of Naval Intelligence. The very fact that she's been brought on in this quote-unquote unofficial temporary advisory role for the Office of Naval Intelligence for such a large duration of time, and the fact that the projects that she's apparently advising on are highly classified, it stands to reason that that's not going to go unnoticed. To give a little context, we need to understand just how intelligent and how brilliant Dr. Catherine Halsey truly is. Even as a very young child, Catherine Halsey was already contemplating ideas surrounding artificial intelligences and how long they live. By the time she was an adolescent, she spent most of her time reading and learning, and had already surpassed the intellect of both of her parents. At a younger than normal age, she was sent to an elite academy, Endymion Gifted, where she continued to completely defy the educational standards. Meaning even at an elite school for gifted individuals, she was still excelling well above everyone else. Her performance here garnered the attention of the Dean of Collector Browning University on circumstance. This took place in the year 2501. Dr. Halsey was born on March 19th, 2492. She was 9. A 9-year-old at university. The Dean was so impressed with how gifted Catherine Halsey was that he personally funded her education through the university completely until shortly after her 15th birthday, after she completed her second doctoral thesis in 2507, meaning at some point between the ages of 9 and 15, she had already done sufficient work and produced 2 doctoral theses, effectively qualifying her as a doctor, a PhD, twice over. Although it is also worth noting that even after this date, it's still noted that she is classed as a doctoral candidate, so it may be that she wasn't actually given the full PhD title until a later date, perhaps after both of those papers were peer-reviewed and she reached perhaps a legal requirement age in order to become a doctor, as that may or may not be a factor in the 26th century. In addition to this, she's obviously done extensive work in multiple fields over her career, making her an expert in many, many fields of expertise, which makes her an autodidactic polymath, which basically means that she can teach herself any subject that she desires to a professional level with little to no oversight. A trait I'm pleased to say that both I and Dr. Halsey share, except I don't have an IQ of 200, at least as far as I'm aware. It's also worth noting that With an IQ of 200, that puts her amongst the 10 most intelligent human beings in history. The infamous Stephen Hawking, a theoretical physicist, had an IQ of around 160. Albert Einstein, the grandfather of modern physics, had an IQ of between 160 and 190. Most normal human beings range between 85 and 115, so the boundaries of her intelligence are immense. And due to this immense intelligence, that comes with some degree of public attention. And if not public, most definitely academic. In order for a person to become a PhD, to become a doctor, they have to submit a PhD doctoral thesis, which then has to be peer-reviewed by other doctors. And the only way that an individual is then granted a PhD is if you have physically added knowledge to a field that did not exist before you did your thesis. Submitting 2 of these before the age of 15 is bound to turn some heads. And when the same name keeps cropping up year after year on subsequent thesis and research papers, again, this turns heads. Dr. Catherine Halsey's name would have been known across the wider scientific community in the same way as the names Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox. These kind of names are known amongst the wider population. And for her to be producing a lot of academic works right from a very early age into her teens, for that to then suddenly stop because she's accepted a quote-unquote unofficial temporary advisory role with the Office of Naval Intelligence, that doesn't happen without garnering some questions and drawing some attention from the wider academic community. So bringing Dr. Halsey on board as the official scientific advisor was probably a way for ONI to save their own skin, because if they would have continued her role there as a quote-unquote temporary unofficial advisory role, as it's been said, then it is inevitably going to raise even more questions as to what the nature of her work is. And for anybody who's dedicated enough and has access to her research papers, it's at least passingly possible that people could start putting together exactly what was going on behind closed doors within the Office of Naval Intelligence. So, to mitigate this risk and reduce the chances of an immense security breach, they finally announced Dr. Halsey as being an official chief scientist within the Office of Naval Intelligence. And in spite of all of this and the proportionally massive paycheck that she was taking home in relation to her previous unofficial roles and her now official role as chief scientist, she's, in her own words, far too busy to spend their money and hasn't actually communicated or liaised with anybody really outside of her boundaries of work for over 10 years. Any mind as bright as Dr. Halsey's and as gifted as she is, with all the research papers and everything that she was publishing and the work she was doing before the Office of Naval Intelligence, any individual who is going through that kind of intellectual legwork to then disappear effectively for 10 years is inevitably going to draw the attention of the wider scientific community to ask, particularly her peers and her colleagues in the respective fields that she's operating in, to ask questions about the nature of her work, given that the nature of her work is heavily wrapped up in abducting of children, illegal flash cloning, illegal human augmentations, and the highly classified nature of the Spartan program and Project Mjolnir. That was a risk that ONI could no longer tolerate, and giving her an official position was ultimately a way to pacify those asking uncomfortable questions. Thanks for watching. If I could respectfully ask, if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed, and if not, it's not a problem. And be sure to pop a comment below to throw me an idea on what you want to see next. Massive thanks to my awesome patrons, Spartan10148, the Metarch of my facility, Falcon, Prophet, Leon, Sophia, Mikhail, and Irrefutable, the monitors of the array, Darian, Flaming Halo, Cameron, Spartan0137, the Cave Potato, Andrew, Shia, Dakota, and Ghost, my diligent sub-monitors, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, and my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who have supported the channel and helped keep the domain operational. Huge props and recognition to Todd Morrison, Spartan137, Wesley Stuckey, and Jacob Kemp for jumping on as Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members. You guys are epic. Shout out to John for reasons. And if you want to help support the channel and score yourself tons of perks and merch, head over to Patreon or consider becoming a YouTube member. Links, as ever, are in the description. Much love, take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.